New bike content is on the way, but I've been busy working on my career as a below average gravel racer. And because sponsorship isn't exactly on the horizon yet, I can't justify the astronomical prices charged by some of the trending nutrition brands. So I went deep down into the DIY drink mix rabbit hole. By now everybody has talked about the perfect glucose to fructose ratio, but when it comes to electrolytes it's always just add a pinch of salt. For me that's not enough, I want to know for sure. But what even are electrolytes and why are they important? In the context of nutrition, they are essential minerals dissolved in your body's fluids that affect the electrical properties of those fluids. A bazillion muscle and brain processes are relying on proper electrolyte concentration to function. Your body's electrolyte balance is extremely complex, so I'm not going to give you the one perfect recipe. I'm going to show you my approach to the topic and the tools that I've been using successfully for a while now. Please do not trust me blindly, do your own research and consult with a professional if you have underlying health conditions. The problem is, I don't know how many electrolytes my body is losing during a workout. I've never done a sweat analysis and you probably haven't either. So I've compared multiple products and recommendations from different sources and found that for 1 liter of water during training, a good starting point is 1000 milligrams of sodium and 300 milligrams of potassium. A quick look at the periodic table shows us that sodium is identified as Na for natrium and potassium is K for kalium. These are the Latin names for these elements and the names we use in Germany. This is why you will see them on some of the upcoming products. Some products only contain sodium, while others also contain potassium, chloride and magnesium. I won't cover magnesium here because not much of it is lost through sweating. I do supplement magnesium, but not during workouts. I will get to the chloride in a minute, but for now we just have to source our sodium and potassium. But you won't find pure sodium or potassium anywhere, and even if you did, you should stay away from them because they are highly reactive and would explode the moment they touch water. What you can get very easily from the supermarket though is sodium chloride, also known as table salt. It tastes, big surprise, very salty, exactly like your sweat, and that's because the salt in your sweat is in fact sodium chloride. So we're drinking exactly what we are losing by sweating. Sounds perfect, right? Unfortunately, it's not that easy. Salt water doesn't taste very good and it can be quite aggressive on the gut. And while chloride itself is an electrolyte, a temporary loss of it isn't critical to your performance or your health. So to find a better sodium source, I went shopping on eBay and got this 1 kilogram container of sodium citrate for just 15 euros. Compared with the sodium chloride, it's almost tasteless and very gentle to the gut, so perfect for our application. For another 15 euros, I got 1 kilogram of potassium chloride. Here we have the chloride again. Yeah, and the taste is even worse than the sodium chloride. But as I will demonstrate in a second, we will only need a tiny amount of this in our mix. If you want to get completely rid of the chloride, you could use potassium citrate instead. Something like this product is available at every pharmacy and it already comes with some lemon-like flavoring. Together with the sweetness of the carbs, it almost tastes like lemonade. All 4 of those electrolyte salts have their useful properties. They are all used in sports nutrition and how you combine them mostly depends on how much chloride you want in your mix. I will continue with these 2, but the following calculations apply to all of them. Yes, I said calculations, because sodium and sodium citrate are not the same thing. If we want a certain amount of sodium in our mix, we first have to figure out how much sodium is actually in sodium citrate. And for that, we have to take a brief detour back into chemistry class. The label gives us an E number, which is short for Europe number, a code for food additives. If we look up E331 in the E number catalog, we learn that sodium citrate can actually refer to any of the 3 sodium salts of citric acid. This is nice to know, but it doesn't tell us exactly which salt is in our container. If we look a little further, we find a CAS registry number. This number is linked to a specific substance in the Chemical Abstract Service from the American Chemical Society. So let's type that in. And it tells us that we are dealing with sodium citrate dihydrate. This is also called trisodium citrate dihydrate because the compound includes 3 sodium atoms. It also tells us that the molecular mass of this compound is 297.12. For now we can think of this as a ratio. It means that the sodium citrate compound is 294 times the mass of one hydrogen atom. Now all we have to do is look up the molecular mass of one sodium atom, which is 22.99. Since we already figured out that our sodium citrate contains 3 sodium atoms, we can now do the math. 3 times the mass of a sodium atom divided by the mass of the sodium citrate compound. By calculating the ratio, we learn that the sodium citrate compound is made up of 23.4% sodium and about 77% other stuff. Back to our container, we can conclude that 1000 grams of sodium citrate contain 234 grams of actual sodium. Or to put it the other way around, if we want to add 1000 milligrams of sodium to our mix, we have to add 4281 milligrams of sodium citrate. Now let's do the same thing really quickly for potassium chloride. The CAS number tells us that this compound is made up of just one potassium atom and one chloride atom. The molecular mass of the compound is 74.55 and the molecular mass of a single potassium atom is 39.1. This means potassium chloride is made up of 52.4% potassium and 47.6% chloride. To make things easier, I've built myself a little spreadsheet. On the left we have the calculation for the relative sodium content. In the middle I can enter my desired amount of sodium for 1 liter of drink mix and it automatically calculates the dosage for typical bottle sizes. Finally, the right side tells me exactly how much sodium citrate I need to put in each bottle to hit my target. Now it wouldn't be very practical to weigh out 4000 something milligrams before every workout, plus most kitchen scales aren't precise enough for such tiny amount anyways. To solve this, I've got myself a tiny scoop with a volume of 0.63 milliliters. But how much sodium citrate does it hold? A single scoop doesn't even trigger my scale, so to get a precise measurement, let's try 30 scoops. That's 20.1 grams. Divided by 30, that's 670 milligrams per scoop. Add that to the spreadsheet and let it calculate the required scoops per bottle. Now we have clear instructions without having to do calculations before every ride. Now that the sodium citrate is covered, let's add potassium chloride to the spreadsheet. The process is pretty much the same, but because of the higher relative potassium content and the higher density of the powder, we don't even need a full scoop to hit our target. If that's bothering you, you could always get an even smaller scoop. And to round things off, I've added the chloride portion of the potassium chloride to the sheet as well. I'm just treating this as a byproduct, I'm not actively aiming for a specific concentration here. You could print this out for your kitchen or simply put the most important informations onto the containers themselves. A big advantage of this approach is that you can dose the electrolytes independently from the carbs. This is why I've included a range for the scoops per bottle. It covers everything from a cool easy training ride to racing in midsummer heat, for example. And that's it. That's exactly what I use to make my drink mix on a daily basis. You can expand the spreadsheet with other electrolytes to make your own perfect mix or even replicate other products. Take these values as a starting point, not the final word. Electrolyte needs are highly individual and I simply wanted to give you a quick insight into the basic math behind these ingredients. Thanks for watching, stay hydrated and see you in the next one.